Have you ever started a journey of personal growth or spiritual awakening only to find yourself feeling lost? Like the person you thought you were is dissolving before your eyes? If you're watching this, chances are you've experienced that unsettling sensation where awakening doesn't feel like finding yourself. It feels like losing yourself entirely. Today, we're going to explore why this happens, why it's actually a sign you're on the right track, and how to navigate this challenging but necessary phase of transformation. Here's the thing nobody tells you about awakening. It's not about becoming someone new, it's about unbecoming everything you thought you were. For most of our lives, we build what psychologists call our ego structure, a complex identity made up of our roles, beliefs, achievements, and stories about ourselves. I'm a successful professional. I'm the funny one in my friend group. I'm someone who never gives up. I'm the person who always has it together. But awakening reveals a profound truth. Most of what we think we are isn't actually us at all. It's layers of conditioning, social programming, and adaptive strategies we developed to survive and fit in. When you begin to see through these constructed identities, it can feel terrifying. If I'm not my job title, my relationship status, my political beliefs, or my personality traits, then who am I? This is why awakening often feels like death before rebirth. You're not losing yourself, you're losing your attachment to a false self you never really were. Let's dive deeper into what's actually dissolving during awakening. The story self. We all carry narratives about who we are. I'm someone who struggles with relationships. I'm naturally anxious. I'm not good with money. These stories feel so real because we've repeated them thousands of times. But awakening reveals them as just stories, not unchangeable truths about your nature. The role self. Much of our identity comes from the roles we play: parent, employee, friend, activist, rebel. These roles serve important functions, but when we mistake them for our essential self, we become trapped by their limitations. The reactive self. This is the part of you that automatically responds based on past conditioning. It's the voice that says, "I always do this," or "I never handle situations like that well." Awakening begins to show you the space between stimulus and response, revealing that you're not your automatic reactions. The comparative self. This aspect of identity exists only in relation to others. I'm more successful than. I'm less attractive than. I'm smarter than. When awakening dissolves these comparisons, it can feel like losing your bearings entirely. As these layers fall away, you might feel like you're disappearing. But what's really happening is that you're finally glimpsing what was always there underneath. The loss of false identity creates what I call identity vertigo, that dizzy, groundless feeling when your usual reference points disappear. You might notice decision-making becomes harder because you're no longer operating from programmed responses. Relationships feel different because you're not playing your usual roles. Career choices become unclear when they were based on false identity markers. You question everything you once felt certain about. This discomfort serves a purpose. It's your psyche's way of saying, "Pay attention, something important is shifting." Many people panic at this stage and rush back to their old identity patterns. They'll throw themselves into work, relationships, or activities that reinforce their familiar sense of self. But this only delays the inevitable return to the awakening process. The key is learning to sit with the discomfort without immediately trying to fill the void with a new identity. This is where real transformation happens, in the space between who you thought you were and who you're becoming. So what's really occurring during this identity dissolution? You're developing what philosophers call witness consciousness, the part of you that can observe your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without being completely identified with them. This observer was always there. You're just noticing it for the first time. You're discovering your authentic preferences underneath social conditioning. Maybe you realize you don't actually enjoy the career you built or the social activities you always participated in. This isn't losing yourself, it's finding yourself. You're accessing what many traditions call being versus doing. Instead of defining yourself by what you do or achieve, you're connecting with the simple fact of your existence. This can feel empty at first because it's so different from our achievement-oriented culture. You're developing emotional resilience by learning that you are not your emotions. Feelings move through you, but they don't define you. This creates space for more authentic responses to life's challenges. Think of it this way. Imagine you've been wearing a heavy costume your entire life, and suddenly you realize you can take it off. The initial feeling of lightness might be disorienting because you're so used to the weight, but it's actually freedom. So, how do you navigate this challenging but necessary phase? First, normalize the experience. What you're going through is a natural part of consciousness evolution. Every wisdom tradition acknowledges this dark night of the soul phase where the old must die for the new to be born. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd show a friend going through a major life transition. This isn't the time for harsh self-judgment or rushing the process. Find your anchors. While your identity shifts, some things remain constant. Your capacity for love, your ability to be present, your fundamental aliveness. Connect with these deeper aspects of yourself. Embrace don't know mind. Instead of rushing to rebuild a new identity, get comfortable with uncertainty. Some of the most profound growth happens in the spaces between knowing. Seek appropriate support, whether through therapy, spiritual community, or trusted friends. Don't navigate this transformation alone, but choose people who understand that this dissolution is part of growth, not pathology. Engage in practices that connect you with being rather than doing. Meditation, time in nature, creative expression without agenda, or simply sitting quietly with yourself. Here's what many people don't realize. On the other side of this identity dissolution, you don't become someone entirely different. You become more authentically yourself than you've ever been. You'll likely find that your decisions align more closely with your actual values, not inherited or imposed ones. Your relationships become more genuine because you're not playing roles. You experience more energy because you're not maintaining false personas. You become more creative and spontaneous because you're less constrained by "that's not who I am" beliefs. The person who emerges isn't new. They're who you always were underneath the conditioning. It's like cleaning years of paint off a beautiful piece of furniture to reveal the natural wood grain that was always there. If you're in the midst of an awakening that feels like losing yourself, take heart. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through. The discomfort you're feeling is the growing pains of consciousness expanding beyond the limitations of who you thought you had to be. Remember, you can't lose what you truly are. You can only lose your attachment to what you never were. The journey from false self to authentic self isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it. On the other side of this dissolution lies a freedom and authenticity you may have never imagined possible. Trust the process, trust yourself, and remember, sometimes losing yourself is the only way to find yourself. Subscribe for more content on spiritual awakening and personal transformation. Comment below, what aspects of your identity are you questioning right now?